hour. Let's get started. And I'm going to try to record also. Oh,
if I could get recording on, you can start it.
You're recording it for me. I can't double record. I think only one person can record. All right. Let's share screen. And let's try and find. Let's do one. Hopefully you just see the one screen. So this is Bionic Bob, and this is Pharmanex week, where there's a lot going on in the world of Pharmanex. Let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about the history and the future of Pharmanex. And one of our CEOs, Truman Hunt, was once asked by Wall Street analysts, what's the secret sauce of Pharmanex and the parent company Nu Skin? There's three things, like real estate is location, location, location. We are innovate, 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 and we're going to talk about that and all the innovation behind this company. Let me see. Sorry, I duplicated these slides. So, quick my story, why I got interested in it is we came for, hold on, click that. We came for the immunity. We signed on for the annuity, and we stay for the community. So what does this mean? When I met my wife, I was in Hong Kong. It's the seat of all global pandemics, swine flu, avian flu, SARS. Wuhan is 535 miles north of Hong Kong. I caught COVID, I know, in December 2019. Anyway, I moved there. I was sick as a dog. And Amy Yip, who might be on this call, can't tell, recommended the Pharmanex supplements to me. It wasn't called Pharmanex at the time. Leah, she introduced to the skincare. And Leah had worked at Christian Dior and knew a bit about skincare from the training program, and said, these ingredients, we can't afford to put them in Christian Dior because of our long chain distribution system I call multi-level markup. And what's going on here? It's going by itself. When we got married, Leah had a fibroid tumor. It's not a cancer, but it grows, and a lot of women get it who haven't gotten pregnant in their mid-30s. And we were going to get a hysterectomy, and a friend said, oh, there's this doctor, a very traditional Chinese medicine, and he deals with growths. And we went to him, and it was weird. If you've done TCM, it's like eye of newt and tail of dog and all this smelly stuff. But there were two green bottles. And I said, wait a minute, that's my brand. Those are the vitamins I just started taking because I was trying to, boost my immunity against the ravages of Hong Kong back then. And it did actually for me in 30 some years now. I've had two colds. One of them was that COVID in December 2019. Anyway, Leah went on it. What did she have to lose other than her uterus? And she went for an ultrasound a week before the surgery, and the OBGYN was amazed. The fibroid had shrunk by a third. He'd never seen anything like it. It might have been the eye of newt and the tail of dog, but I was convinced it was two green bottles, which was Tea Green and Reishi Max. And I said to the doctor, hey, that's my brand. He said, yeah, the green tea is pharmaceutical grade. It's used in cancer research in the US. And the reishi, they're the only ones who cold crack the spore of the mushroom. No idea what he was talking about. I do now. And we're sometimes known as the cancer couple in our Punahou community, the high school the boys went to, that Barack Obama went to. And not because we're curing, or we can't say we cure, mitigate, or prevent any disease, but not that we're helping people with cancer, but they're dogs. In America, people will spend much more money on their poodles and their pooches than their own health sometimes. So let's go into the origin story. I'm trying to get something off the screen that's blocking it. So the company was founded in Thousand Oaks, California. The co-founders, there's no relation, Dr. Michael Chang, he did his postdoc at MIT, senior medical scientist at Rohn Polanc Rohr, and then later at Merck. He left the company to found another company in 1993. Dr. Joe Chang is still with us. He did his postdoc at Johns Hopkins, and he's probably most famous while he was at Wyeth Home Labs. He invented a tissue rejection drug, rapamycin, which is used if you have any organ transplant. You're going to be on rapamycin for life. It also seems to protect the telomeres at the end of DNA, and there's a lot of people taking rapamycin for anti-aging. Venture capital was Fidelity Investments and J.H. Whitney, which is one of the original venture capital firms, $38 million, one of the biggest first round financing at the time. The mission was to marry I'm sorry, this is going by itself. The mission was to marry traditional Chinese medicine to the highest standards of Western pharmaceutical science. And I think they achieved that. But really the personal one, Dr. Joe Chang's dad had a stroke and then repeated strokes in the last 10 years of his life were pretty miserable. And, Joe knew the genetics behind that and that he had a high chance. And he just saw more, when you see this close up in your family, you're going to see it everywhere. And it is, if you look around, this is happening to people's parents and sometimes to themselves. So really, it's not to live forever. No one gets out of here alive, but we want to extend healthy use spans. So the company came up with a 6S quality process: selection, the most effective natural ingredients. I'm going to use our tea green. So we're looking for one of the most powerful natural ingredients is green tea. And, where do we grow it? I mean, where do we get it? Is it from a battery factory in Guangzhou? No, ours is in Zhejiang, very far from any industrial processes. We use only the thin edge of the baby leaf, and we get it down to the molecular fingerprint. We standardize it. Every single capsule has 250 milligrams across all batches.
Itu apa? Oh,
So,
itu apa?
Lily, can you try to mute that person?
Because hari semalam kan ada lagi itu. Ada yang lebih, jangan simpan tahu, cepat-cepat makan habis.
See if Lily's found the person who's my co-host today. All right, let's get back. And the U.S. Nutrition Council has gone in the U.S. into shelves and pulled stuff off the label, and it varies, and there's toxic ingredients in a lot of supplements that are sold in multi-level markup, retail. Safety, we test for contaminants, we spend a lot of time with suppliers, and even with qualified suppliers, we reject 50% of all incoming pallets of ingredients, and they go back to those suppliers, and guess where they end up? In our competitors' products. We also know what the optimal dosing is. You take the recommended dose. You can take an overdose. We also know that some people are enthusiastic, and we'll test our products. So if you drink a whole month's supply of our collagen, you're not gonna. You'll have maybe some orange things the next morning, but you're going to be fine. Substantiation, double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover studies, peer-reviewed, journal published. No one in the supplement industry has this level of diligence in their products. We then were sold to a company called Nu Skin, because what happened, the retail channel really disappointed, because consumers they buy based on price and packaging. 2 years after that 1994 launch, the company they were looking for sellers. The venture capitalists were, not going to get their money's worth. 4 big pharma giants were vying for it, and Joe Chang certainly did not want to go back to work for big pharma. He'd been there and done that. And there was a packaging CEO, supplied packaging to both Pharmanex and Nu Skin. He's now our Nu Skin COO, and he brokered the marriage. Joe Chang chose Nu Skin not because it had offered the most money, but he was told by the co-founders that he'd have freedom to innovate, and he would be a star. And that's certainly been the case. Those of us who are in the company, we love Joe Chang, and he's really evolved over time. I have a picture of him, but he's gone from awkward to just very amusing, and we all love him. So these are the 3 co-founders of Nu Skin. They had been in a company, the Cambridge Diet Plan. It was a network marketing company. And like many network marketing companies, suddenly the checks stopped coming. And about 99.5% of network marketing companies do go out of business within 5 years, and often within 1 year. It has an deservedly poor reputation, but then again, entrepreneurship itself is risky. So they set out to found their own company. First, they looked around for companies they think would be viable, and they said, well, why don't we get into skincare? Because there's really high margins and there's a lot of crap there. And so their philosophy was all the good, none of the good, none of the bad. And they sent letters back before the internet to hundreds of dermatologists and skincare specialists saying, what would you put in skincare? What would you not? And 3 of the letters ended up in the same practice. And that practice called them and said, if you're doing what we think you're doing, we'd like to help you. And they helped in some of the formulation. They took this to manufacturers, and no one would make the products for them because the ingredient cost was very high. And this kind of resonates with the history of Pharmanex. When you put a lot of quality in your products, you probably can't sell through multi-level markup, traditional distribution with all the mouths that have to be fed. You have to find some direct route. And that was part of the innovation, was that we went into direct sales or network marketing. And they did pretty well with very good skincare. They found one manufacturer who said, you advance $5,000 cash and I'll make a first batch. And they ran out of packaging in the first 2 weeks. And people were so impressed with the products, they would come over with like, clean mayonnaise jars or something, and they would spoon it. And that spoon is still on display in the museum in the ground floor of that innovation center. So really, really by their bootstraps that they got going. And when they saw Pharmanex, they really saw a kindred soul in terms of quality. So when Nu Skin started out, all of the good and none of the bad, you can look up on YouTube the Magic Show Nu Skin and see some of these early demos, and they were fun. So you would put a moisturizer on colored paper and then ours, and 20 minutes later, you realize that moisturizer is not moisturizer, it's mineral oil, and it's from petroleum, and it's very cheap, and it's an emulsifier, meaning you spread the ingredients through it. But it's harmful because it clogs the pores of the skin. And we used something called NAPCA. It's a salt. It's the natural humectant in our skin. And as we grow older, we have less and less of it. So this is just one example of one ingredient in Nu Skin's, all of the good, none of the bad. And the reason is you just won't find it in other skincare because they have to sell through multi-level markup, and they just won't put NAPCA in any of their moisturizers. They use mineral oil. Sounds so good. It's so terrible. Pharmanex was a really key acquisition because the company was already moving into supplements. I remember when we were introduced to it, when Amy, bless her soul, introduced me to the Life Pack. It was interior design nutritionals. And they realized that they had to upgrade their nutrition line, and what better than Pharmanex? Because a lot of what happens in the skin is our nutrition. So that when they bought Pharmanex, that it really transformed the company in terms of PhD scientists and rigor. And we'll go into some of the things. We'll talk about the scanner, the physician's desk reference, and why that's important, and why the U.S. Olympic Committee was important as well. Now, the second big acquisition was a company in gene expression. We'll talk about that one. So what are the resources? There's 75 research scientists on staff. It's 150 on an advisory board. It's a who's who of anti-aging. This is the real deal. There are a lot of companies, particularly in network marketing, that are smoke and mirrors. This is not. The research tie-ups, major universities, research labs, and we have 2 innovation centers. I'll show you pictures of them. Distribution is king because we have all these field reps out there moving our products. Companies with a great idea come to Nu Skin and say, will you distribute our product? That's how we got the AP24 whitening toothpaste. It was developed by dentists, and they brought it to us, and we said, oh, we don't have a good toothpaste. And that's what launched our social media marketing strategy before and during COVID. This is the Innovation Center at Provo. And really, this is our building. The company is very clear about this. You can come and use, if there's no conflict, you can use the meeting facilities for free. There's a big, they have fly-ins the third Friday to Saturday of each month. But the big one is the Success Summit, the 17th and 19th to 19th of July. Please come. It really is pretty transformative. They do a great job. We do have manufacturing and research facilities in Pudong and Shanghai. I haven't visited it, but it is very impressive. So Pharmanex, the name itself was from Next Generation Pharmaceuticals, and they picked up the LifePak line and improved it. It was really, the original products were T-Green and Reishi and Cordymax, which were traditional Chinese medicines. We're one of only 8 brands pure into label by National Standards Foundation. We have that triangular device, which I'll talk about, that guarantees that you're being absorbed. We're in the physician's desk reference and 5 golden rings. So in 2000, 2004, and 2008, we had the privilege of backing and powering the US Olympic team. And we use gene expression science to age us younger, and that was the second big acquisition of LifeGen Technologies. We'll talk about that. So this is a device that really convinced me. I looked at the label of the LifePak when Amy introduced it to me, and I was impressed. But then when they came out with a scanner 10 years later that could measure your carotenoids and see, it's really the nutritional lie detector. Should you be taking any supplements? And if you're taking supplements, are they working? And most of them are not. And really, most of the supplements on the market are placebos or worse. And what I found in the US is actually ignorance is bliss, or at least it used to be. It used to be that less than 50% of Americans took vitamins. It's now around 75% take some form of supplements. And with women over 60, it's 80%. And so more and more knowledge is power, and the knowledge is to measure. The measurable difference was one of the Pharmanex catchphrases. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And we're all wearing, Apple Watches or Fitbits or what are those rings that people wear that are measuring, our sleep cycles or, what have you. So having a device that really can measure is very powerful. So the history of the scanner, it was first developed in late 1920s by C.V. Raman, a Malaysian of Indian extraction, discovered if you shine a coherent light at any surface, it bounces back and you can measure what's in that surface. So it was used in industrial applications for 6 decades. We fire lasers at the moon to see if it's made of green cheese. But in the I think it was 1996, NIH, National Institute of Health, sponsored a research study, and they don't do studies themselves. They organize all the clinical studies of mankind into PubMed.gov, the largest database of clinical research in the world. But they actually were very concerned about Americans aging, not getting Alzheimer's, heart disease, and cancer, but going blind. Because when we lose our vision, we'll be around for a long time, and we're going to need a lot of people to take care of us, which takes people out of the workforce. The actual cost of macular degeneration and cataracts is higher than these other things in terms of the cost of society. So they were researching at the Moran Eye Institute at the University of Utah the ability of this Raman effect, this reflection of a blue light that shifts green if there's carotenoids, to measure the ability of the eye to resist UV damage, which causes macular degeneration. And Dr. Werner Gellerman was the head of oncology, or cancer, was one floor down from them. He heard about this and he was curious why some of his cancer patients would get a second and a third cancer, no lymph system relation to it. So he brought his cancer patients up, and they all scored really low on this primitive device. And they invited some supplement companies in, and Nu Skin had just won, I think, the 1996 Olympics, and we were powering that Olympic team. And they said, well, it's pretty, it's only 40 minutes away, Provo to Salt Lake City. And they brought in the chairman, and also Nathan Ricks, who was then semi-retired. He was one of the most famous field reps in new skin. And they scored very high. And the new skin founder, Blake Roney, pulled out a checkbook and paid, I think, $34 or $35 million on the spot for the technology. So it came off patent about 2 years ago, and there are some competitor devices, but we're upping our game all the time. And this is the improvement that's coming. It's called Prism IO, and it's the shape of a hockey puck. And instead of 30 seconds, it takes only 15 seconds to scan us. And I said 10 seconds. Sometimes it'll be 10 seconds, but just usually 15 seconds is what it's doing. It's much more accurate, and our current device is pretty accurate. Its standard error is low. There will be upgradable firmware. It's a little like your Tesla or your iPhone, that at nighttime you can upgrade the operating system. And we have research partners who will add other functions to this other than carotenoids. We're looking at anthocyanins. We have a product about that I'll mention, and skin collagen. I mean, really the possibilities are endless. And we believe that at $249, that's the guesstimate of what it'll cost, every family will want to have one. Now, Charlie Patterson is going around the US. He's come out of retirement. He had quadruplets 8 years ago. He likes to joke because he's got 5 girls, 1 birthday, 2 births. And they were taking, fertility medicine, and it really worked. This happens sometimes. And, it was really quite a strain. So he was able, with his new skin income, to spend time with the girls and really pull himself away from the business. And his business actually grew. He's got some really good teammates that he works with. And his income grew while he was taking care of the girls growing up. But he's come out of retirement because he sees the same thing that happened. He was fascinated. He was a professional wakeboarder, and he saw the original scanner in 2003, which was much smaller than the room size one that NIH did. But it took 45 minutes to warm up with 4 different colored putties, and had a temperature tolerance of about 8 degrees Fahrenheit. So, but he saw the potential because people are taking supplements on a hope, a wish, and a prayer that they're working, and they're not. And now he sees this dropping to the size, to the size it is. You can carry around in your pocket. You can, scan someone on an airplane. I've actually done that with our S3 scanner. But, you can do this at a dinner. And he had one. There are very few out there, but he had one in his family. What he noticed is the girls started competing to get a higher score. And, I think the older daughter is like 12 or something, said, "I want to upgrade from Jungle Mole's Children's to Life Pack Nano because I want to beat mommy." So you get this. And if you've ever scanned like a couple, or any more than one person, do you notice, those of you who use the scanner, they compete with each other? And I always tell them, you're not competing with each other, you're competing with yourself. But there's just a natural tendency. And so you put this in a family, and they're going to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. They're going to take their supplements. There is nothing out there on the market that will be this. The competitor that's using our patent is $16,000 to buy that in an optometrist office. I mean, this is going to absolutely transform the supplement industry. It's something like a $300 billion industry in the US and almost $1 trillion worldwide. There has never been anything like this. And as a result, it is starting to come out. I think Team Elites will be able to buy in the 3rd quarter, some senior brand reps in November, and it'll go into mass production in the 1st quarter of 2026. So you want to get ready now. And I'll come back to it in a second. I thought I'd put the slides in for the presentations about that. The second big acquisition was LifeGen Technologies, which has developed 40 years of genomic aging data. And what they have done is with us is worked on something called gene expression. And what they've looked at is they looked at all sorts of monkeys and various primates and put some on what we call caloric restriction. And caloric restriction is something that was discovered in the droughts and famines in Scandinavia in the 1880s. And the population survived, but just barely. And we're living on grass soup like they do in North Korea at times. And 40 years later, they're living a very long time. So what this company was doing. Sorry, there's a delivery person at the door, and I can't move to get to them. What the purpose of LifeGen Technologies was to basically mimic caloric restriction without canceling dinner reservations for the rest of our lives. And the research that we then did on top of that was using something called gene chips to measure gene expression. Now, gene expression, I'm sorry to get into the weeds here, but this is absolutely essential. And this is the nurture part of, nature versus nurture and aging. So 2003, the Human Genome Project, a NIH team beat a French team by 2 weeks, I think, to decode the human genome with supercomputers there. We hold those supercomputers in our hands now. But they found 23,000 gene pairs that define our hair color, our body shape, our predilection to disease. On top of these were 80,000 genes that were unexplained. They were called junk or garbage DNA. And there's no way our creator in her infinite wisdom would have 4/5 of our genetic material being vestigial or junk. And the research since then by Big Pharma and by us is, what do these genes do? Well, they're switches. They sit on top of the underlying genes and they modulate them up or down. And when we're young, the genes are being modulated, the good genes are being modulated up. And then that begins to dim with time and with poor lifestyles and obesity and stress and particularly poor nutrition. And what we're able to do is, using mostly natural ingredients, is return this heat map of gene expression to a younger function. And there's really no one doing this anywhere in supplements. These gene chips are expensive. Each one is $40, and we use thousands and thousands of them. You use it once and it's done, and we use thousands and thousands of them just to hone in on a few ingredients in one of the products I'll talk about. Honestly, this is a barrier to entry. Understand this. No one is doing this except Big Pharma in very expensive immunotherapy, cancer, and other drugs. We are the only company with this level of scientific diligence. One of our best products was based on research into the blue zones of the planet. This is places where people live young a long time. So Japan, Okinawa, the Mediterranean diet. Peru, over in the lower left, you probably don't eat Peruvian blue corn every day. I've been to Machu Picchu. It's fabulous. And the locals there are poor at altitude of the equator, and yet they look really young because they're drinking a juice from this or eating it every single day. Fish, the resveratrol and red wine, but there's actually in Okinawa that seaweed has resveratrol that's, you don't need to get the alcohol with it. Well, this is Joe Chang. And he's been on, when he went on our products, the gene expression products, he drinks his own medicine, or he drinks his Kool-Aid. And, he's not only is he funnier, but he's clearly younger. And I think he's going to achieve his goal of a healthy youth span and will not repeat, the tragedy of the last 10 years of his father. So, it's just nice to see our goals in life coming true. One of the things that's coming out now is that the carotenoids that protect our eyes against macular degeneration, and this was proven in those two NIH studies, ARIDS 1 and ARIDS 2, that they also improve cognition at all ages, and particularly as we get older. So this was about 2 months ago. A journal of in the eye practice just made the association that patients with AMD would get Alzheimer's at a very high rate. Well, it's clear to us, and they didn't talk about it in the article, that the common factor is carotenoids, and we're the only one who can measure them. And, we know about the retinal disease, but we're also finding it prevents cognitive decline. And it's one of the, carotenoids is one of the, or some of the ingredients in the Bredesen protocol. If you have Alzheimer's in your life, buy this book. It's a kind of a guidebook on how to slow it and sometimes even reverse it. I mean, I just went into PubMed.gov and said, cognition and carotenoids, and even toddlers will be more intelligent if they have enough of these carotenoids that only we can measure. And young university students 10 years later, score higher on IQ and have higher salaries than those who are nutritionally deprived. So our eye formula is one for those eye practices, and I also recommend the oral collagen because it has lutein, which seems to be the most powerful of the carotenoids for UV protection. So, besides declining cognition, we've also recently, Pharmanex has really looked at mental health problems. I don't know about in your country, but in America, people are stressed. They have difficulty. Wait, what were we talking about? They have trouble sleeping, and what was it? There was a fourth thing. I just can never remember what's the fourth problem. Oh, right, memory. So we have four products around that, and this launched at the end of last year. A couple of years before that, we're starting to realize that the brain, really the gut, is the main brain, or is connected to it. And a lot of research is into this, that the gut and the brain, there's a really strong connection. And so we came out with a product that's based on the research, using gene chips to figure out how we can stop the inflammation.
Anthocyanins on rats, fattened up on a diet similar to fish shakes, burgers, and fries. The body mass index of these rats is 25 to 35.
Sorry, I always have to go back. I haven't figured that one out.
Lindsay and his team tested the effects of anthocyanins on rats, fattened up on a diet similar to fish shakes, burgers, and fries. The body mass index of these rats is 25 to 35, equivalent to the BMI of most of the Australian human population. What's happening as a result of obesity in these rats' bodies right now?
Blood pressure is going up quite dramatically. The heart function is going down. The liver function is going down. The abdominal fat pads increase. The hormones go up. The whole of the body is being affected, and that's characteristic of obesity.
And it's all linked together by this inflammatory response.
It's all linked together because the inflammatory response occurs in every organ. There's no organ that is immune from that.
And then, after 8 weeks, he added anthocyanin-rich juice to the food of half the rats.
Much to my surprise, actually, we found that the anthocyanins in purple carrots, in green garnet plums, in all of these things completely reverse all of those changes. So we haven't changed the diet. They're still getting this high carbohydrate, high fat diet. And yet with that intervention, all of those parameters that characterize obesity are back to normal.
That's incredible.
That is incredible.
The results with rats have led to human clinical trials, which are now underway.
So that's at University of Australia. That's not our research. We're not the only ones at the cutting edge of healthy use spans. But this is, obesity is a huge problem. High cholesterol, the statins that are prescribed for it, they begin to melt your muscles and diminish your cognition. Basically, what we have are healthy alternatives to a lot of the harmful pharmaceuticals, and the idea is, to not need these drugs and to have a healthy use span. This is the goal in everything that Pharmanex does. We've already talked about this. I'm not sure why this slide came in again, but this is in the US, we're really geared up. Charlie Patterson is, he sees the opportunity. He's, and others that are in a lot of them are in his team, but some are not. And they're doing twice a day, take a picture of this, And I'll also put this in my WhatsApp Bionic Bob training, and I'll give that to others. You can, with the time zones, plug in from from other time zones. You do the math. Mountain time is 4 hours behind New York time, if you don't know the time. But who do you know in the US? Send them a little teaser saying, I'm looking for partners. We're launching a new technology that's going to transform families' lives. Anyone who'd be interested in making money from this or transforming their lives? Ask for referrals. And when someone says, yeah, I know a couple people, but you got to tell me, you can plug them into one of these calls. There are also live meetings. We have not done this sort of live meetings around the US in forever. I mean, obviously COVID kind of shut this down, but we'd sort of sputtered on this. We used to do this. There were sometimes weekly meetings in most cities, and there was a directory on One Team Global where you could plug in around the world. And it's starting to revive, and people enjoy it because there'll be one of those scanners, but there'll definitely be a couple of the current S3 scanners, and people get together and they scan. The idea is to start scanning people now with the S3, get them on products, see their scan score go up, they build belief, and they join your team on the business if they're business minded. I'll update this as I've asked Gary DeRitter, who's one of the senior people in One Team Global, to please publish this schedule on the Facebook. The Facebook for One Team Global is One Team Global Live, if you're going to look for schedules and things. So with that, we see the opportunity really to realize the company's goal, which on the business sense is to become the world's leading business opportunity platform. It's a lot better than driving Uber or Uber Eats or Etsy or any of the other things for people who want to build another source of income. And with this, it's just exploding. I haven't even talked about India. That's not the subject, but we're doing two things at once. A major, not just a product launch, but a device that's going to force multiply the impact and the sales of our supplements, which is half of our business. I can see our supplement business going from $1.2 billion or something to 5-6 times that in the next 3 years. And at the same time, we're launching our business in the largest country on the planet with the most entrepreneurial people on the planet. I mean, I don't know, maybe you can see another opportunity as good as this one. If you do, please show it to me. I haven't seen. I went to a pretty crappy business school, but I have never seen anything like this. I've never seen a business that is as effective and low risk and low cost and low hassle as network marketing. I've never seen a company as well positioned in that industry. So I'll finish with our mission statement. So if you want to read it with me, please, I won't unmute people, but our mission is to be a force for good throughout the world by empowering people to improve lives with rewarding business opportunities, innovative products, and enriching and uplifting culture. And I always end with a thanks to Pat and Marguerite, who are part of that culture. Could have retired years and decades ago, but love their organization. They love the company, and they love the impact that they and all of us can have on people's lives. And with that, if Lily, if you want to come in and unmute anyone, otherwise we will go on to our day and start sending people hockey pucks. Oh, and this morning's call, Gary DeRitter said, go out and order on Amazon a hockey puck. Then go to SmugMug, which is where we have some graphics, and search for Nu Skin. Go to smugmug.com. And we have little cutout or pictures of the face of the hockey puck. And so you can get it, the kind of the scale that has it, and print it out onto adhesive paper, or just print it out to any paper, and then cut that into a circle and just glue that to your hockey puck. And he said it really makes it, when people hold something, seeing is believing, well, touching is touching, and you really will. I'm doing that today. Just a little tip if you want to promote the Prism.io let people touch it, or at least a reasonable facsimile of it. All right, guys. Lily, are you able to unmute people, or did
Robert,
somebody want to wave their hand?
Robert,
Yeah, I'm all done.
Robert.
Yeah. Let me stop sharing. Well, if there aren't any questions, I have a persistent delivery person. I've got to get to it. So I am going to,
I just have one question, Robert.
yeah.
Can you put the spelling, the words pocket top and the two words where we can look up Nu Skin? I'm relatively new. I'm from India.
Oh, welcome. Which words do you want spelled?
The two words which we have to look up for Nu Skin just now. You put hockey pot and some one word you mentioned.
So order a hockey puck on, online store. If you don't have a sports good hockey, probably India till you get to the north doesn't have a lot of hockey. You're a cricket nation. But and then go to a website called Smug Mug, SMUG. MUG, and then search for Nu Skin, and there'll be graphics of the cover of it. Is that clear?
Yes, it's here. I got it. Thank you so much.
Guys,
Robert.
this is actually an important delivery. I'm gonna thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This is Robert Howe. Service. Oh my goodness, you've been out and ringing a few times. I'm so sorry. Let me come down. Yeah, no, I was, but I was leaving a little.
Okay, I think that's the end of the session, everybody. I was trying to hope to get a photo before Bob runs off, but guess he's run off already. So I think that's the end. And so tomorrow we have the same time, another day 3 of our Pharmanex nutrition training here on the same Zoom. Okay, see you everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.